Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so this is going to be the first video to the series called Impossible Possibilities. I really am excited to be sharing this part of my journey with you all. So I'm just going to get straight into the video. So this video is talking about how God has really renewed my mind when it came to marriage, and it started with my wedding. God has renewed my mind so much. I'm happily married. I've been married for 6 years, okay? So I just want to put that out there. I am currently married. I've been married for 6 years. I got married in 2018. Let me give you a quick timeline. First encountered my husband in June of 2016. Within a month, he and I entered a committed relationship where we were courting, we were dating, getting to know each other. Exactly a year later, which was June of 2017, I got engaged to my husband, okay? I'm giving you guys some timelines so you can kind of understand as I'm talking about this where we were. My husband and I's relationship started off very intentional. He and I are both believers of God. We're both people that were single, but also living for God at the time we met. So our situation was very much like, I would say, kind of straightforward. When my husband encountered me, when he approached me, my husband was intentional about his approach with me. He was already looking for a wife. He made that very clear. He was not looking for a situationship. He wasn't looking for just a long-term relationship. He was actually looking for a wife that God had for him, okay? Me, on the other hand, I have been single for almost 7 years. I was also intentional about my singleness at this stage of my life. I had not wanted to enter any other committed relationship unless I felt like it would be leading to marriage, okay? So that's that. So moving on into us being engaged, I had a preconceived notion of what my dream wedding would always be like. Even I would probably say in my 20s, I had always envisioned myself to have this super nice wedding. I never felt like I wanted like this over the top wedding, but I have always envisioned myself of having this really nice wedding, okay? And if you're a woman watching this, 9 times out of 10, you probably envision yourself having some type of wedding too, because that's just kind of how it is, right? Well, at least for me, that's how it was. So in meeting my husband, he did not envision himself of having any type of nice, lavish wedding. My husband is very simple. My husband was like, it does not matter to me what type of wedding we have as long as I'm marrying you. And he displayed that even when he proposed to me. Like, we had a great proposal engagement moment, but it wasn't one of like a lot of people. It was just very nice and simple, catered to us, okay? It was only he and I there when he asked me to marry him, but it was very special, and it was very intimate, and it was very intentional. So fast forward to planning the wedding now. I'm like, okay, now we're getting married, and this is where my head starts to turn, and I'm like, we need to have this wedding that's like XYZ, like this. And my husband's like, I never imagined myself having this huge wedding. Okay, we both agreed that we did not want to go in debt for our wedding. We both agreed that to us, a wedding was just a day. We did not want to take out any loans for a wedding. We didn't want to charge any credit cards for a wedding. We did not want to take out any personal loans for a wedding. Nothing like that. So we did agree on that. But for me, as far as like the attendee count, I was thinking more so having like 150 people to the wedding. And my husband was like, 150 people? I don't even talk to like that many people. But at the time when I was engaged, I had a very different mindset than what I have now. And I just had a very open mindset when it came to like people that were around me. I just felt like, okay, if this person, I've been working with them, this person I'm associated with, that person I used to be friends with, I just want them at my special day. God really transformed my mind when it came to his desires for me. And y'all, if you would have told me years ago that I would have ended up having the type of wedding that I did, I would have looked at you and said, you're crazy, because I'm not having that type of wedding. However, when God changes your heart and your mind and he alters your plans, you know it's nothing but him, right? Even in the word of God, it says that a man may make plans, right? He may make plans in his heart, but it is God that ordains man's steps. And so we might want what we want or think things should be how we want them to be, but ultimately God will know what's best for you. So, as we were planning our wedding, my husband and I, we came to a compromise, okay? He compromised having a larger wedding because at first he was like, it could literally just be us and I'll be happy. I was like, that's not gonna make me happy, so no. So we came to a compromise and we agreed upon having 75 people at our wedding. We agreed on sharing the cost of our wedding. My husband and I, well, he was my fiance at the time. We opened up a joint account together solely for saving for the wedding, right? So we were not like paying no bills together, weren't living together, any of that type of stuff. The joint account that we opened was only to save money for our wedding because that's what we had chosen and decided to do. We weren't going to our parents for any funds for the wedding, weren't going to any relatives. It was something we wanted. It was something that we were willing to financially provide for. And so as we were engaged, we opened the account. We would put money in there and we saved money pretty fast. I mean, I would say we were engaged for about 15 months. I can't quite remember, 15, 17 months. But we saved money pretty quick. Like I think every time we know we got some extra money or we got paid, we were just putting money in there, saving money comfortably, right? So with all that being said, when it was moving closer to time for our wedding, we had decided on a venue, we decided on a location, we decided on our wedding party, we decided on the wedding date, of course. I had purchased my dress. My husband had chosen his groomsmen. I had chosen my bridesmaids, flower girl, all the stuff, all the things. It was just coming together so beautifully. And then something happened. So a hurricane was coming, and I want to say the name of the hurricane was like Hurricane Florence. It was approaching our area because we live in South Carolina. So it was approaching our area around the time of our wedding date. Now, at first, when it was approaching, I was like, I'm not worried about it because a lot of times they'll say hurricanes are coming to South Carolina and they don't come. So I was just thinking in my head, like, it's not going to affect my wedding. But as it began to move closer to the wedding date, that's when we had to start taking it seriously because, weather was saying that flights were going to be canceled. Um, these winds could be, X amount of winds per hour. Safety just was becoming an issue, a concern, I should say it that way. And so my husband and I started having a conversation about it because we had relatives coming from out of town. I had my dad and family coming from out of town. Godparents were coming from out of state. Dad was coming from out of state. Just different people coming. And we had to make a tough decision, right? So I'll just tell you guys what my mindset was. I was strung, headstrong to the fact that, hey, I waited 7 years. I've been abstinent. I've been waiting. I've been, doing all the quote right things as a single woman. God's not going to let this happen to me. He's not going to let me not have the wedding of my dreams because in my mind at the time, I felt like God knows really what I want. He's not going to ruin that for me. That's just where my head was at the time. That's where my spiritual understanding was at the time. God would not wreck my plans when I've been doing all my good girl Christian things, right? So as we proceeded to go along, I just started questioning that theory I had because I'm like, well, what if this storm does come and what if you do have to alter this wedding that you set? And that's when I began to really seek God on a different level because I had a tough decision to make. Now, my husband, he was already like, it don't really matter to me, but I know this is what you want. I know this is what we agreed on. So you're just going to have to really make that decision. I'm going to let you make that decision. He didn't intervene and say, no, we're not having a wedding. Storm's coming, out the question. He kind of like left it up to me. Well, I remember during this time calling one of my close friends at the time. She was a person that I really looked to as like a strong spiritual friend. I could call her, we could pray together, we could talk about God together, we could share our hearts together. And I remember calling her one day, I was at work and I was so burdened down with like worry and just all these emotions going on in my mind because I didn't know what to do about my wedding. And my friend said something very significant to me that I will not forget. She said, I'm going to pray with you on the phone right now. And I'm not going to necessarily pray that this storm passes. I'm not going to pray that you don't get to have your wedding. I'm going to pray that God's will be done for you and Michael. I'm going to pray that whatever is best for you, that God's will be done. And I'm not gonna lie, when she said that, my heart was like beating so fast because I knew within myself that that was the right thing to do, but I was not at the place to really receive it at the time. But as she began to pray and she began to pray the will of God for our lives and she began to speak the word over our lives, I just had this moment of like tears coming down my face because I had accepted the fact that this wedding is not about necessarily what I want or what I think is best for me, but in me trusting God with this whole process of, you know, presenting me with my husband and presenting me with the relationship that was only presented to me in a way that God could have done it, whole nother story. But all the things that God had shown me up until that time, who is I to doubt that God had the best plan for me, even in this hard situation and decision that we had to make? And as the tears begin to fall down my face, I just begin to release the control that I had on the outcome. I began to release the expectations that I had of saying, hey, I deserve this type of wedding because of this, this, and this. I deserve having it my way. I had to release it. And as the tears fell, I could feel a release happening in my spirit, in my mind, in my heart. It's like a weight just lifted off of me as my friend was praying for me. And immediately after she prayed for me, I had a peace. And I texted my husband because I was at work, and I texted him. I said, we can go ahead and cancel the ceremony. We need to contact the vendors. We need to go ahead and let them know that we're not going to chance it. We just need to go ahead and we just need to like cancel it. I began making the arrangements to let my father know, hey, you know, I regret to inform you, but we're not going to be going forward with this type of wedding. The storm is coming. We've just made a decision not to take a chance, and we don't want anybody else to take a chance. So we're just going to go ahead and postpone the wedding. So at the time, our original plan was that we were going to postpone the wedding from September 16th down to somewhere in October. Now, we were still going to get married because my husband was very adamant. He said, I don't care what storm comes, I don't care what happens. Me and you are getting married the date that we set. Because, and it wasn't even about like, I'm trying to hurry up and marry you for obvious reasons. It wasn't anything like that. So I don't want y'all watching thinking it was like that type of party. But it was more so like, we wanted to commit to what we said was important to us and put aside the material things, put aside the wedding venue, put aside the wedding cake and the bridal party and all these frilly things, and really stay committed to what we had, the gift that God had given us, which was each other, right? We wanted to still commit to God. And a lot of times we can let external things keep us from committing to God, something that, you know, He's looking for us to commit to. And I feel like I definitely know now that when it comes to marriage and a commitment before God, God ain't worrying about no wedding party and cake and all that stuff. I'm not saying that is bad. So please hear my heart as I'm sharing this, my journey. I'm not saying that having a wedding is bad. I'm not saying that you're not honoring God if you have a very huge wedding. You could have $1 million wedding, $100,000 wedding, $3,000 wedding. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying that as a Christian you shouldn't do that. I'm only sharing my experience and how God renewed my mind, which was much needed for me. He renewed my way of thinking when it came to what I thought I needed in a wedding that I did not need. So fast forward to September 16th, 2018. It was my husband and I, our pastor, my sister, my husband's brother and his wife, my mom, my husband's mom. Very intimate setting at our home church. We were married by our pastor. Just us, just the people I named, just the people I mentioned. Very close, intimate ceremony. I did not have on a white dress that I had purchased. I had purchased a ivory white princess ball gown dress. I did not wear that to our church when we got married. I wore a blush colored dress. My husband did not wear the tuxedo that he had ordered for this wedding ceremony we were initially planning. He wore a gray suit. But guess what? Everything happened how God intended for it to happen for us. Our wedding ceremony was so intimate, so pure. I felt God's presence there. I really felt the presence of God at our wedding. I didn't have any worry, any anxiety. I didn't have any feelings of disappointment. I didn't feel like I settled. Even though in the beginning when I was engaged, I was like, I could not see myself just having regular wedding ceremony in just our church with just our parents and our close family. I couldn't see that possible for me at the time because in my mind, I had an expectation. And my expectation at the time was kind of entitled. My expectation at that time was kind of immature to where I am now or where I even was after I got married. It was just, it needed to be refined. And God will oftentimes put us in situations where He's not punishing us. He's not harming us. He's not withholding good from us, but He's simply refining us and showing us, hey, my daughter, what you think you need, you don't need it. I got something so much better for you. And fast forward to this. Let me fast forward because there's something key about this. There was a lot of moving parts to our wedding that we did not see with our natural eyes when it came to people, when it came to like people attending our wedding, when it came to situations and circumstances surrounding our wedding. There was a lot of things that were there that I don't believe was God's best for us. And I'll leave it at that. There were just a lot of moving parts, okay? So God knew every person that we invited to that wedding and what their heart was for us. God knew every person that was in that wedding party and what their heart was toward us or their intentions or whatever, even if they would be in our lives in this season. Because there's some people that would have been attending our wedding or in a part of our wedding or just involved with our wedding that are not even in our lives in this current season, right? So the people or the things or the desires that you might have in the season of your life that you just feel like, I just have to have this. I just got to experience this. God is like, you think that, but I know best. So after we had gotten married, we had a beautiful wedding time. We went away for a couple of days. And when we were coming back home, I asked my husband on the way home, I said, would you be upset if we did not postpone our ceremony in October? Would you be upset if we just let it be like what it was and not try to recreate a wedding ceremony again? And he said, no, I wouldn't be upset. I said, I think I'm feeling like I don't want to have a wedding ceremony again. I think what we have done was just the way God wanted it. And I'm very satisfied. I'm very content. I'm very happy. And we both agreed in that moment that we would not even move forward with postponing our wedding. We let everyone know, hey, we initially planned on rescheduling the ceremony. However, after we got married, we just had peace about not doing it. And here's the kicker. All the money that we had saved up in that account together, we were able to do so much with that money. We had already had our honeymoon paid for, and we had decided to take a honeymoon like a month after we got married due to church obligations and commitments. So that was already planned out. So that was already paid for. But in addition to our honeymoon already being paid for, we were able to like add some additions to our home that we lived in together. We were able to buy new appliances. We were able to do like a number of a lot of things. Not only that, the venue refunded us back our deposits. There were things for the wedding that we had made deposits on that were actually given back to us. There were items that we purchased for our wedding that when we tried to return it, they were like, you keep it and here's a refund. Like it was just grace upon grace, blessings upon blessings that God had given us due to our submission to God's will, or should I say my submission? Because my husband really did. My husband was not adamant about having a wedding. Like I said, it was me. My submission to God's will made us blessed, and it just caused things to happen the way God intended for us to. I mean, now that I look back 6 years later, when I look back on the pictures of our wedding day, when I look at the people that were there, those people still matter. Those people are still very much a part of our lives. those people still very much are there for us. And so I feel like that was just the core memory that I have of being married and submitting my personal preferences to the will of God in a way I never thought possible. So, to those of you that are watching, I don't know what it is in your life that you have an expectation for. And I always believe it's good to have God expectations and not expectations filled with just what we want or just our own desires. God did tell us in the word that if we delight ourselves in Him, He will give us the desires of our heart. But there's a part to that we sometimes don't understand, is that God is able to even change our desires, and God is able to even maneuver the desires that He has for us and cater that and center that to His will. Because just be honest, some things we want, we don't need. Some things we want, they may be harmful for us. Some things we feel like we have to have, God's like, you don't have to have that because I have something better for you. And in this situation with my wedding, God had a plan for us that we could not even see. So I'm going to kind of post and insert like some pictures of our actual wedding day so you guys can see it. And then I'll show you guys the actual official wedding shoot that we took like a month later, that we're able to post and share my dress and my husband's tux and things like that. So we still were able to share like fond memories of being married. But that was just one season, one example of how marriage had changed and transformed my life. Because when I tell y'all, your girl had a mindset that needed to be refined. And that's just not all, but there's so much more. But that's just one example that I feel led to share today, is that whatever it is that you're believing God for, just believe that God's will is better than anything that you can want or desire. And also, I want to tell you, God is withholding no good thing from you when you walk up right before Him and you love Him and you do what He has called and told you to do. He's not withholding anything from you. So I don't care if you're waiting for something, if you're believing God, or if you're trusting God and it seems like things are not turning out the way you want them to. Trust that they're turning out exactly the way that God intended them to. And you may not understand it now, but there will become a day where you see that this was working for my good all along. God was protecting me from things that I couldn't even see. He was protecting me from people that I didn't even know did not have my best interest at heart, or whatever it can be. So I'll leave you with that. I want to thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next video where I'll be sharing another impossible possibilities. And if you have resonated with this video, if you like this video, I invite you to like it, comment. I do read the comments. Share it if you feel like it'll help someone else, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.